Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Well, it's great to be back today. Where are we going to start today? What subject are we going to discuss? Well, we're going to discuss a multitude of subjects today. And again, I apologize for the bit of hiatus. Again, I was out to parts unknown, and maybe I'll talk about that eventually, but not today. Anyway, where are we going to start? Let's start down in sub-Sahara Africa, right? Where is the most likelihood of war and strife? Well, one would think that we would start in the Sudan, right? But we're not. We're not going to start in the Sudan. We're going to start in Nigeria. Nigeria. An incredibly populous nation state that is very much in a position to fall apart. Nigeria has a population of about 240 plus million people, maybe many more than that, maybe pushing closer to 250, 260 million, possibly. Nigeria is split religiously and ethnically as well. Nigeria is approximately 51 to 53% Islam, Muslim, Sunni Muslim. It could be anywhere from 45 to close to 50% Christian as well. The southern part of the country, along the coastal areas, and specifically to the southeast, if you ever had a chance to delve into the Nigerian Civil War, that was a very kinetic civil war that took place, and if you get time, definitely jump on a site and read more about it. But that war could make what is coming look like a child's playground, meaning the prior Civil War. Again, 250 million people. 250 million people. The country is fairly large, but not really that big to contain 250 million people. And essentially, one half of the country, for the most part, dislikes the other half of the country, and then you have the tribal ethnic issues as well. Now, I was asked the question, what is going to happen in Nigeria? Nigeria is going to fragment. It cannot not fragment. It is impossible for that not to happen, or that is going to absolutely happen. You have Islamic extremism. Millions of Islamic extremists in northern Nigeria. Now you will hear the quote unquote secular federal Nigerian government talk about things are pretty much hunky dory and everything is okay. It's not okay. It is not okay. And eventually that is going to play out. Why is that going to play out? It's going to play out because of Islam, because of the Muslims. You have very much almost, if not a majority of the country, believing in an expansionistic quote-unquote religion. The Christians in southern and coastal and southeastern Nigeria would just like things to be okay, right? Most Nigerian Christians probably go to bed at night hoping, with their fingers crossed, that everything is going to be okay. I can tell you, it is not going to be okay. Now, are we seeing a quickening of this? Are we seeing a quickening of the Islamic expansionism taking place in the north? Somewhat, yes, absolutely. Is it moving south? Are they actively looking to subjugate the Christians in Nigeria? Not yet, but it is going to happen. Is it going to happen in a year? Is it going to happen in 10 years? Difficult to say. But understand, it is absolutely going to happen. It is in the roots of Islam for this to occur. The very foundation, the very principle, the whole idea of Islam is to expand, either through religious conversion or overt conquest. The only real hope that Nigeria has would be a separation of North and South. A Islamic nation state to the north and a Christian nation state to the south and southeast. It's the only option. Otherwise, it is going to eventually be hell on earth in Nigeria, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Absolutely. All right, now next on the list is going to be Ethiopia. Now let's go back to early November 2022. That was about the time to some extent, the Tigray Abiy Ahmed war was sort of winding down. But at the same time, we were seeing the conflict between the Russian Federation, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and the Ukraine starting to really kick off. Now, at the time, if we go back to that period in 2022, October 2022, we had the initial stages of peace negotiations. We observed Getachew go down to South Africa and have discussions with the Abiy Ahmed regime. Now, if we go back to earlier content that I produced, once the Pretoria Agreement was acknowledged down there in South Africa, I felt that something was taking place that was not going to be in the interest of the Tigray region. Yes, it would provide a short-term respite in terms of open warfare. Short-term. And it did. As I had mentioned a few years back, I believed that it was possible that Mr. Getachew Reda was working for Abiy Ahmed after the Pretoria Agreement. Well, first, all you have to do is look where Mr. Getachew now resides. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, my apologies. Anyway, he is now living in the capital, Addis Ababa. And he serves on the quote-unquote administration of Abiy Ahmed. Okay? I don't even believe at this point he is welcome in the Tigray region. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think I am. And again, look, when you are the tyrant of a nation state and you have the full resources at your disposal, you are able to bribe and manipulate individuals. Now, was Getachew bribed and manipulated? You decide. And look, again, it's not something that is hard to do. People want a good life. And if Getachew was given that opportunity to have a fantastic, fairly opulent life without worry, versus coming from possible areas with no electricity because of war, why would he not do that? Now, if we go back again to 2022, November, we're kind of back exactly where we were. Debretsion is back in power. He's running the show. He is in Mekelle. Getachew is not. He is in Addis Ababa. Now, what's interesting this time, again, and I've talked about this before, look, Tigray was in a very difficult situation. And I don't want to do a full debrief on this conflict. It's a very complicated conflict with a lot of moving pieces. And, you know, if you're an uninformed urbanite and you're not following some of these international conflicts, I'm not going to get into the entirety of the conflict right now. So this is really for people who have watched this conflict and are still interested in what is happening. But if we go back to 2022 versus where we are at now, there's one key piece to this puzzle that is much different. Look, if we go back to pre-Pretoria agreement, you were looking at what was essentially a multitude of nation states and regions in and around Ethiopia that was attacking the Tigray region, right? You had the Abiy loyalist forces. You had the forces of the Amhara region. And you had the forces of Eritrea and its massive army as well. You had Eritrea attacking from the north. You had the Abiy loyalist forces along with the Amharan forces as well attacking from the south and east. And it was happening. Very difficult situation. But even under those conditions, the Tigrayan Defense Forces were still very successful. At one point, threatening the capital of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. The TDF had captured Weldia. They had gone down, seized control of Kombolcha, and continued to press even further than that. And again, was on the precipice of possibly making a move towards Addis itself. That capability was there. Now, what's different this time than the conditions that existed prior? Well, this time the Eritrean army has soured its position on Abiy Ahmed. So, in all probability, you are not going to see the Eritrean army marching into northern Tigray. Currently, the Amhara region is rebelling against Abiy Ahmed. And I talked about this years ago when I was covering this in depth before the Ukrainian war kicked off. I talked about this. I said, look, we know what Abiy Ahmed is about. We know his purpose in life. And I've talked about his goals and his aspirations through some contacts that I may have. And eventually, even those folks in the Amhara region, when I talked about this, oh no, Abiy Ahmed is awesome. Well, what do you think about Abiy Ahmed now, their Amhara region? Do you still agree with that? Eritrea, how do you feel about Abiy Ahmed now? Right? So again, things have changed. It has turned. And the Tigrayan Defense Forces are still capable, especially when they don't have to deal with this large hostile force to the north. But it was an incredibly difficult situation for the Tigrayan military to conduct the operations that it did. And it was incredibly successful. I mean, eventually you saw the seizure of Mekelle. And most people at that point figured it was over. It would become a long-term industrial strength insurgency. But Tigray was able to counterattack, retake Mekelle. They essentially annihilated an entire core divisional-sized element of the Abiy loyalist forces in Mekelle. Took about 10,000 Abiy loyalist forces prisoner. And then started the long march towards Addis. And again, very successful. Again, had it not been for the issue that was happening with the Eritrean army fighting in the north, things would have gone much different. And now we're kind of back in that space again. But again, this time, no Eritrean army, no Amharan forces that are probably going to march into the Tigray region. Now, is that going to happen? You constantly hear the drumbeat that Abiy Ahmed wants a port. Well, look, it's nice to want things. I get Abiy Ahmed wants a Saab. I get it. But again, it's nice to want things. Can he do that? Does he have the economic and military capacity to attack Eritrea? And the short answer is probably not. Probably not. He is barely keeping things together in terms of the issues with the OLA, the Oromo Liberation Army, and then obviously the Amhara region, and then quite possibly Tigray announcing, hey, we're done. We're finished with this. Now, we're kind of in that realm now where it's possible we could see some sort of further reconciliation between Eritrea and the Tigray region. I mean, they're the same people, they're the same language. They're more connected probably to Eritreans than the peoples to the south, in all probability. So is this going to light up again? Are we going to see a further and more intensified version of a second? Well, we're already in that space of civil war, right? That's already going on. But is it going to flare up and get even worse and possibly include Eritrea? And the answer is yes, it will. Again, same with Nigeria. Is it going to happen tomorrow? Is it going to happen in a year? Is it going to happen in 5 years? Difficult to say, but it's going to happen. Ethiopia, and I call it the former state of Ethiopia because it is a broken state. And realistically, outside of the federal capital, it is a broken system. And it's going to be very difficult to sustain itself. So we will see indeed what happens with this conflict. Again, eventually, maybe not now, but eventually, I just don't see peace. All right, let's head up to Iran. Now, supposedly, the United States was very close to launching another series of strikes against Iran. But apparently, the pause button was hit. Now, what's happening right now is Iran is going to continue to do what Iran has been doing. This Islamic military theocracy. Now, look, I would say that in all probability, it is gravitating more towards a military regime rather than a Shia Islamic theocracy. I think it's still going to remain a Shia Islamic theocracy, but it's going to take the form more towards a military theocracy. Probably looking more like North Korea, with a heavy dash of Durka Durka Durka. Heavy dash of Durka Durka Durka. Absolutely. It cannot have a spicy element of Durka Durka Durka. It will always have a spicy element of Durka Durka Durka. Absolutely. And this is where, if you are going to go to war with this sort of a regime, you have to crush them. You have to go full-on draconian. You've got to go full-on medieval. You have to. Limited strikes, limited military action against this sort of militaristic, theocratic regime is not going to work. You have to punish them. You have to crush them. And look, I've talked about this in prior pieces of content. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on where you sit on the equation, the United States is not willing to do that right now for a number of different reasons. But ultimately, if you're going to be successful in war, you have to be willing to prosecute war in a ruthless manner. War has existed for tens of thousands of years. one way or another. But the types of wars that are happening now are wars where armies are held back. If you're going to go to war, you must give the military the latitude to prosecute that war that achieves a political and territorial objective. Hey, defeat opponent A, make them come to these terms, and you unleash your military force to do that. Now look, if you go back to Afghanistan, the period of time that we were in Afghanistan under Barack Hussein Obama, almost every strike package, or many strike packages, that were to be executed by the U.S. military to fight the Taliban, to fight the Mujahideen, had to go through the White House. Again, for 8 years, the military was just not let loose. Even under Donald Trump. And part of that is the ethos of the U.S. military. Things changed. Post-1950 and onward, things changed. But look, war is not nice. War is not pretty. And if you're going to go to war, if you're going to use military force, then you need to use it. You have to make your opponent understand that it has been defeated. You have to crush them. Mentally, physically. You have to make them tap out. Most of you have watched a UFC fight, MMA fight, right? What happens? One opponent gets on the top of the other opponent and bashes his head in, or I'm going to break your arm or your leg or what have you, right? And then the opponent taps out, or he's just laying there, sleepy time. That's war. That's what you have to do. And look, it doesn't look pretty. There's many people that can't watch MMA. But that's what it is. That's what war is. It is vicious UFC, MMA on a much, much larger scale. Much larger scale. And you have to fight like that. You have to crush your opponent. So we'll see what happens. We're probably a few days away from this resuming. And the reason I say that is Iran is not in that position right now. Iran does not believe, or there's certain components to the Iranian leadership right now that does not believe it has been defeated and still wants to fight. And again, until you take that fight away, this is the way it's going to look. So we'll see what happens. We will certainly see what happens. Now, there are some other issues that I want to talk about that are going on in the ununited states of America, but we will talk about that another time. As always, thank you for joining us. More to come very, very soon. Good day.